Welcome and thank you for joining me. This is Laurie of Laurie's Heirloom Sewing. It is a sunny March day in Washington State, what we call the western side. And while it is sunny outside, it's very cold. All the cars have frost, all the roofs have frost, the grass is frosty. So I'm kind of glad I'm inside. The last time we talked, I was working on this pattern right here. And that very first project right there. And this is how the first one that I created turned out. As you can see, there is a white piece of fabric that goes all the way around my project, all the way around. And then on top of that, to kind of bridge the gap between the print fabric and the white fabric, I put some rickrack. I didn't really know how I was going to finish this off. It really was just sort of a, let me just get it done. This is the rickrack that I used, but I simply used the reverse. I didn't think that tie-dye would look good with the fabric I had. I would have preferred something a little less jarring than white, but because this is the first one that I've made, I'm okay with it. It still serves its purpose. And now that I kind of have a better idea of the mechanics of how this goes together, I will be doing another one, but I'm going to give it a rest for now. I have this one over by my ironing board. I did not put a backing on it. It's simply this. But I'm going to tell you how I did it. Now, I would have filmed doing this. What I can do is kind of give you a walkthrough of how I accomplished this. If you like this, or if you are experiencing a similar situation and need to know how I did this. So I basically utilized my heirloom sewing history and knowledge, and I applied the white fabric, which was the flour sack material that I have, to the circle. Let me get that up. Okay. So this is the backing piece and was cut out per a pattern piece provided with the actual pattern. And it is meant to go on the reverse of a 9-inch embroidery hoop. But I'm just going to show you, because this is a 12-inch, what I did. So I took this piece right here with the pocket, which I don't have a pocket for this, but we're just going to pretend that there is a pocket stitched on here. And then I literally took a piece of this. It looked basically like this, maybe a little bit longer, and I laid it on top exactly halfway down my circle. So from the top of the circle to the middle of the circle, you just find the halfway point, and you can do that by folding it in half, and then take whatever color piece of fabric you want and lay, and it doesn't have to be pretty. None of these edges have to be finished or pretty or anything. These are all rough cut. Just lay it right there so that you have, I don't know, I'll pin it so you can see through the light, because you want to have obvious excess fabric that that goes way beyond your circle. So, like this. And that for me, that's right at 1 and, oh, it's a little bit. So if I'm on the 1 inch mark at the top of my circle, this is 1.5 inches beyond the top. And then of course there's way more out here, but you need it to go at least 1.5 inches all the way around the outer edge of the top half of your circle. And then exactly the same thing for the bottom half, and you want to overlap these two that meet in the center so that there's just a slight overlap on the outer edge on the sides where these two meet up. And then pin that down so that you have at least, 1.5 inches extending beyond your circle, and pin it however you want to pin it. And I'll explain that in just a second. And I am going to go ahead and stitch this because I want you to see what I did, how I did it, and why it works in this particular case. Just in case you ever need to do it for any other project that you might be involved in. But see, as you can see, I now have this. Now, if you happen to have a solid piece of fabric, that's fine, you can do it, but you will have to cut an opening somewhere on the front side once you get this all applied on here. I just happened to find it was easier for me to use the two. These were pre-cut. I'd used them for something else, and I just used them because I knew I was going to need to have access after I stitched this to my circle. Okay, so now I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to set my sewing machine on a zigzag stitch in the needle down position. And however you prefer to do your zigzag stitch, that's perfectly fine. But you're going to want something that's going to be fairly close together. So if you're not sure what that setting on that default setting for a zigzag on your sewing machine is, do a couple of practice stitches, and then I'll show you what mine looks like so that you can see, what it should look like. Now, if your pins are in the way of your stitching, you're going to need to either move them or put the pins on the other side. I can feel where mine are, and I'm going to start down here where I have the two pieces of fabric meeting in the side. I'm calling it the side, but a circle doesn't really have a side. Okay, move that pin out of the way. And I need my machine to be in needle down, because if I have to stop, I'm on a circle and I don't want to lose my sewing line, and I don't want it to zig off of my zigzag line. So having it in the needle down position really helps. You could also do this by hand if you're really into sewing by hand. Then just do an embroidery satin stitch all the way around the edge. Okay, so here we go. And I'm sewing so that I'm half on my print fabric and half on my extra fabric. Okay, so then trim out your threads. Which you will have on both the front and the back. You can remove your pins. And if you happen to have a set of embroidery scissors, there are several different types of scissors that would work well for this. I just used my those black handled gingers right there when I did this originally. But if you've ever wondered what this was for, if you have some, if you've seen some, if you want to get some, I will show you what a marvelous tool this guy is. So you're going to cut like this. And what this does is it lies flat along your sewing. I'm on the wrong side. I'm looking in the camera and not what I'm doing. Okay? And you're just going to trim as close to your stitching as you can without cutting through your stitching. And this keeps your fabric, your under fabric, safe. So you just go along this edge. I'm hoping that's showing up. As you can see, I'm trimming. Now, if this was a solid piece of fabric, I would have had to cut, you know, cut an opening to get to this side. But I didn't need to because it was folded. You can also just use some straight scissors, but you do have to, you know, be careful, and you will have a little bit harder time getting as close to those stitches, you know, as you can with this duckbill type. These are gingers. I honestly don't know anymore what they cost. I used to sell these in my shop. There's no affiliation anymore with that. I don't have a shop, and I don't sell scissors. I don't have any affiliation with Ginger. But back in the day, I think I was selling these retail. It's like $27. But I haven't looked at them, so I have no idea. That was about 20 years ago. I had an actual retail shop. Okay, so now we're coming up around the edge where we started. Okay, I would save those. All right, and then if you have any spots like right here I kind of missed, I do recommend just taking a pair of scissors and kind of bending it back and, you know, cleaning up some of those edges. All right, and just be very careful that you don't cut through that, you know, that print fabric. All right, so now we have this, and we could take probably a 9-inch hoop. And what this does is it gives us that little extra bit of fabric. I swear I am so hoop challenged. You have no idea how long it took me to get that thing centered and as good as I could possibly get it. So frustrating. And these hoops, I just don't know. I mean, you can see this fabric is very thin. It's like this hoop thing is just not working for me. I've never had an embroidery hoop as difficult to work with as these two are. This one and the 9-inch. I think it's a brand that I found on Amazon that's like really inexpensive. But I mean, I used to do just oodles of embroidery, and I had a lot of really nice embroidery hoops, but these are not my favorite, I gotta say. Now these birds are upside down, so obviously I'm gonna have to, if I want to use this particular piece of fabric, I would have I'd have to flip it over. But then after you apply your hoop, like I've done here, then you just take your scissors and cut the excess fabric, and then you know, you're good to go. Now, if you want to put a piece of trim, obviously you would need to do that before you know, get it set in the hoop. And I just used that that rickrack because I had it. I bought it as part of a bundle at a garage sale, God, probably a decade ago. And it was just in this box of stuff. It's not like I went to the store and purchased rickrack. But anyway, I'm going to save this because I probably will put a pocket on, which would be just halfway. And then I can finish this, you know, and have myself another little wall hanging. What they're calling the Caddy. And that's why I purchased this gorgeous pink felt fabric. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is piece number 21, the big, huge, thing right here. These are the pockets, and it's going to show us on the pattern piece where we're supposed to put these pockets. And then we just stitch them down. And then, for example, number 24 has stitch lines. So we've got little, you know, we can put pins or whatever in there. So we're going to do that. Then we're going to cut the ribbon in half and pin ribbons to the Caddy top, turning under the ends at the broken lines as shown, and then stitch across the ends of the ribbon, and then lap the outer edge of the Caddy top over the rickrack trim, and place the edge of the top along the center and stitch all the way around, just like we did on the pockets. Okay, so again, I'm going to just drop my needle carefully and remove this pin. The needle is now doing the job of the pin. I don't have to worry that it's going to come undone, and I'm just going to, and it just came out from under that needle. Okay. Oh, I'm having one of those days. And because these pockets are so small, you know, you might find that what I'm doing you could, you know, easily do and would prefer to do by hand. And there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't or shouldn't do that. Okay. Put my needle, see, and I just skipped this pin. So that's why we don't want to sew over a pin. Okay. Fold this up and over. And I'm might not need to pin it. It feels like it's going to behave. We'll see. Okay, so our pockets are completed. I'm going to move all of my little pocket pieces over here because I have to mark the caddy front with these stitching lines. Now this is going to stick up beyond, this trim I just put on is going to stick up beyond the pattern piece. So I want to line that up where it's supposed to go and pin it down so it doesn't move. Okay, this has a heat erasable pen, but I don't know if the ink will erase off of felt. So I'm going to do a test real quick and see if that will come off. And I'm doing it on just a little scrappy piece. So here's my little scrappy piece. I'm going to draw. All right. I just scribbled all over it. Now I'm going to go hit it with the iron and see if that erases off. And it does. Success. So I can mark with my heat erase pen. I've got pocket line, pocket line, pocket line, pocket line. And what I need to do is use just a card of some kind, or a ruler if you have one. I save these cards for marking all the time. Okay, and then this is where your two ribbon pieces go, so you might as well mark, and all you really need is a top and a bottom for each of those. So we've done what we need to do with this piece, and I'm going to fold it up so that the number is on the outside in case I need to access this pattern piece again. I don't want to have to unfold all of the pattern pieces looking for number 21. All right, so now we will take this piece right here is the center, and it goes right there where those two marks are, and we will pin it in place. This one goes from the edge to here, so we will pin it in place. And this pocket has stitch lines, so again I'm going to hold it in place and just kind of trace down where these stitch lines are. It's just called marking my fabric. So there's that. And then this one also goes from the edge to this line. Pin it in place. And it also has a couple of, that's not straight, a couple of stitch lines that I need to draw on. like that, okay? And I'll set these over here. I think we're good, all right? So now we're going to stitch along the outside edge from the top of our pocket to the bottom. So from here to here on this, and then from the top to the bottom, from the top to the bottom, and then just along the edges, and then we're going to do the same stitching arrangement on this final pocket. So now you can elect to eliminate these stitch lines. You can have just one big pocket here if you wish. If you make more than one, you may decide, hey, you know, I kind of like the idea. And you can just kind of customize it, make a bespoke caddy that you like and that you want to use. We're stitching on felt. We don't have to worry about these little raw edges that we're going to have. We could, in fact, completely cover all of those with that trim that was the rickrack that was supposed to be applied. But because this won't ravel, I'm not worrying about it. You know, to follow the directions to the letter, I would say refer to the pattern and make sure you have rickrack trim for those pockets. Okay, and one more little stitcheroo down here. Okay, right, now, all right, so far this is what we have. I think it is extremely cute. I don't know if that's visible, so I'll hold it up. And then this will fold and it becomes a little book-like thing that opens, and you can store a small set of scissors, some markers, some needles. This up here would be great, where the ribbon goes, to store pins, hand sewing needles, any of those types of things. You know, this might be a little big, but you can actually get a large full-size set of scissors into that pocket. So if you wanted something for, you know, to take to class, I think this would be a great project, as well as keeping your sewing area somewhat organized. So in the next session, we're going to finish up this little sewing caddy, and then move on into the pattern weights. I had planned to do those first, but things have just kind of gone out of control haywire, and I'm just kind of